Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners, and this is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. Our host joining me today is BizSmart Select member Matthew Parsons from ServTech IT Limited. But before we start today's webinar, can I ask you all to use the question mark function on your screen to post any questions that you may have for Matthew, and he will do his best to answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Matthew.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Just to go through some slides and bits and pieces regarding cyber security. And we'll just go through a brief introduction, and then I'll touch on the cyber-related threats, their objectives, how can you combat them, and also touching on GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation that's coming into force next year. So my name is Matthew Parsons. I'm the director at ServTech IT. We're an IT support solutions company, and obviously our sort of motto is we solve IT headaches for businesses by providing exceptional customer service and innovative solutions. I've spent the last 16 years working for a variety of IT partners and got a variety of Microsoft and Apple certifications along the way. And the business has been going for about 2.5 years and is obviously growing every year obviously with our customer base. So that's going fantastic. So just to get down to the nitty-gritty of today's webinar. So cybersecurity, kinds of threats. So you're probably aware of quite a few of these, and I will just touch base of actually what they are and actually how they actually get in and how you can combat them. So if we just start by moving on. So phishing attack. This is attack usually via email, which by the attacker pretends to be a valid provider of a service. We've seen this quite a lot with Apple emails, bank emails, that sort of thing, whereby in the email there'll be a link, you'll click on the link and that'll take you through to a page that looks pretty much identical to that same page as the provider. Obviously with the objective to gain those credentials to then get into your Apple account or your Lloyds Bank account or whatever it may be. Just move on again. Okay, so malware. Obviously it's first a various form, a bit of a typo by my hand there, but a form of harmful software such as viruses and ransomware, generally to cause disruption, obtain data, or hold you to ransom to collect money. Obviously this is actually a big thing in the press recently, obviously with the WannaCry virus that's been going around, infecting older operating systems such as Windows XP. And there was a flaw detected, and there's quite a few providers out there actually found this flaw generally before hackers did, so that can actually protect networks prior to the attack. Generally on the increase, it's not going to go anytime soon. Generally these again get in by obviously like phishing emails, people clicking on links they're not aware of. And obviously how they hold you to ransom is they start to encrypt data just not only on your PC, but can actually get onto your server shares as well and start encrypting your server, causing havoc for the rest of the business. So it's not just an individual issue this is going to cause, this will affect your entire business. And we've seen it before whereby users have actually had to restore their entire servers and systems back to before that, obviously losing time and money based on the fact that obviously had people working for those days that they've had to restore back from. So it can be have quite a large impact for businesses, so it's one to definitely be aware of. Okay, and denial of service. So denial of service, and more commonly known as DOS, or you can get DDoS, which is distributed denial of service, which is whereby they obviously attempt to disrupt a service by simply flooding it with data. And what distributed denial of service attack is where they use multiple computers to again send lots and lots of data at a particular service, most commonly used against websites. So for example, they could target Lloyds TSB, I'll say Lloyds as it now is, throw lots and lots of data at it until ultimately it can't cope, and ultimately it'll just fall over. That's quite a common one. To move on, man-in-the-middle attack. Again, the idea is to intercept your network and internet traffic by pretending to be a valid service provider, similar to phishing. I suppose phishing essentially is the first step to that. Man-in-the-middle, they'll generally try and put some sort of device or put themselves in between you and your end point, or say your target, to see if they can intercept that traffic along its way. If it's not encrypted, such as passwords and things, or you're not using a secured website, or you're using like a private host of some sort and you've not got it encrypted, then ultimately your credentials and all your traffic and your emails and things could be going an unsecured link, and obviously that could be open to being intercepted and obviously used to gain access to other areas. Now, credential reuse, it's not generally there's the two parts of this really. Credentials these days aren't secure enough. I was told by a security expert that generally we should be having longer passwords, because it's not so much the complexity of them, but actually the length of the password that actually makes it more difficult. But more the fact of reusing those passwords, so we all have one password for everything, and that's not uncommon. So ultimately the biggest issue with this is, should you be attacked in any way and after they obtain your username and password, chances are they're going to then try and use that to get into other services and other service providers with those same credentials to get access to other areas that you may use the same details with, which chances are for most of us is we've got the same ones. We've all got so many numbers and figures and letters all banging around in our heads, and you forget the password for one, so you reset it to the other, and it's quite a common one really. So again, very basic obviously protection. That is to try and have a unique password or a unique complex password per service that you're utilising. And insider threat. So it's probably becoming more and more apparent that obviously you spend an awful lot of time and effort and money on your business, and obviously you need to protect it. And obviously this kind of attack is usually from an internal source within your business that has access to data, can delete things if they want to. Obviously they've handed their notice, they can delete obviously their computers, obviously anything that's on their computer that could be of use to your business. Obviously getting a bigger problem, obviously how do you protect yourself from that? There are various bits of software out there that will track keystrokes, take screenshots. You can journal emails so that every single email sent internally or externally can actually be archived. I suppose the important side of this, if you are going to archive emails, the employee needs to be aware that you are tracking that sort of information, but also the fact that it needs to be held in a manner which it can't be adapted at all. Email's such an easy thing to spoof, that we need to have a way that's going to be in line with the law really. That's good. That should it become to a court case, that actually that email could be used to go against that employee in that manner. So we're just going to talk about, touch on these various areas and also how we can look to protect from them. And obviously the most common one is antivirus. Antivirus for me is very much the last line defence really. I'd like to hope that actually quite a few of our clients, we look at their infrastructure, we look at their security, we look at obviously their budgets as well, and we look at obviously what level of security we can put in place to help protect them from these various kinds of obviously threats. So antivirus obviously is your basic obviously protection against that. Obviously, with addition to that, we can also add in an additional layer of endpoint protection. And what I mean by that is obviously we are still protecting from antivirus, but this is more so the insider threat side of it as well. So you can lock down USB ports, stopping as employees copying data to USB. We may allow them to obviously copy from the USB, but not to the USB. So it stops them taking that data away. Just to move further on down, so we've got anti-spam. Obviously, I'm sure we're all aware what anti-spam is. So as email comes in, it gets obviously checked against registers in regards to obviously their domain name, the sort of the content in there, how many pictures are in there, the kind of content, and then sort of gives it a scale marking, and it gets either marked as spam or it gets let through. Obviously, archiving of all email I've already sort of mentioned as well. So we can use third parties to do that same sort of function. You can have it internally, but again, they also meet all the various law-abiding sort of requirements to be able to use in a court of law, really. UTM, Unified Threat Management Appliance, is generally a physical box, and it sits between your network and your internet connection. And this can provide a level of protection in regards to anti-spam as well. It can provide a layer of antivirus. So when I say obviously antivirus itself is actually a last level of protection in my eyes. A UTM appliance such as a sonic wall would intercept the antivirus at the outer layer of your network, because it has a gateway antivirus. So as users are downloading products, as they're receiving emails, as they're clicking on links, you've got that protection there stopping it on the outside of the network. So obviously that's the best place to stop it. And obviously if all else fails, we then obviously depend on our backups. Obviously generally we need to make sure we have an in-house backup, an off-site backup, and it needs to have been tested. I think there's many businesses out there that would have had their backups and they think it's all green, it's all good, they're not hearing from the IT company, it all looks fandabby-dozy, and they can depend on it as and when. If that backup hasn't been tested, how are you going to know when push comes to shove that you can actually restore your data? At the end of the day, your business could be turning over 100,000, 1.5 million, 10 million, 12 million, whatever the case may be, and your entire business can come to a halt because you have a fire and you haven't got a good backup. And obviously then the rest of this comes down to a disaster recovery plan, and obviously how quickly you can get yourself back up and running after an attack or a fire or whatever the case may be. And obviously we touched on monitoring and recording. So ultimately, a data breach usually happens, and you probably hear about it on the news all the time, usually happens obviously way before the actual IT company are aware of it, and it's making sure you've got those logs recorded, so that should you ever need to go back in and you see where that breach has occurred, that ultimately then you can prove that it was either you've done your best endeavours, that you've followed your procedures that you've had in place with regards to security events to make sure you're doing your best to protect your data really, and to prove where the issue occurred, and obviously make sure that you can look to protect that in future. So we try and keep those logs for as many years as we can really, obviously generally up to 10 years where possible. So should we ever need to go back, that we've got that auditing and that history to go back. And I suppose ultimately we've implemented a system for ourselves in regards to data protection as far as using passwords for clients go, whereby any employee under ServTech accesses a password for a client to also get into their system, which we need to do as part of our business function, that we actually audit and then track who actually opens that password on a number of occasions, and so we've actually got a complete audit history of how that data is used and who was last user into that system. So there's no generic user accounts on our system, it purely is logged against that individual, so we've got complete traceability and protection of our clients' data. And more so, and obviously this can become quite a big topic, and if you're not aware of it already, is obviously the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, is due to come in force the 25th of May next year. Now you may think it doesn't apply to you, and I suppose it all depends how you handle personal data, and it all comes down to personal data, and how they define personal data is how you can identify an individual by the data that you have. So for example, like a CV, you've got someone's name on there, you've got someone's date of birth, you've got their address, you've got their telephone number, you've got their entire job history, you've got their email, you've probably got a picture, and so on. And it's about protecting that data more so. And you've probably all got CV banks of people who applied for jobs previously, and so, okay, where's that data held? Is it secured? Could it be hacked? Some of it comes down to processes. Some of it comes down to programs to also protect that data. And I suppose the other side of this is and the common question we have is what's the expectation in regards to, are we supposed to spend £100,000 on security to protect our £20 million business? Well, I don't think that let's say the ICO, so the Information Commissioner's Office, is really expecting you to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds to protect your business in that manner. But I think it needs to be justified. You need to have those processes, that you've looked at it, that you've put processes to protect that data, and then it needs to be deemed sufficient enough to protect that client. that's all due to come into effect obviously next year, and obviously no likely we're going to be part of the EU still, and the chances are is that when we leave the EU finally in probably quite a few years' time, is that our own UK data protection laws will probably change to fall in line with that, purely down to trade agreements with the EU. So I don't think it's something that people can stand down lightly from. It's something that people need to be fully aware of. So whether or not you're a big or a small company, you're definitely going to need to tick some of the boxes. And ultimately, I think that the most common sort of thing is, well, I'm a small company. Is it really going to impact me? Are they really going to be after me? I'm 2 users and I work out my home office. Is that really going to be really targeting me? Well, no, if anything, you're going to be the ideal target, because the chances are that you're not going to put any sort of protection in place, or have those processes in place. So it could be 4% of your annual turnover, or also up to 20 million euros. It's one of those. I think it'd be silly not to take eye of this, and I think quite a few companies still don't pay an awful lot of attention to this. So I think it's something that's definitely worth just keep at the back of your mind. Make sure you speak to your IT partner, or come have a chat with us, and obviously just see if you're ticking the right boxes, even just to make sure that should you have an attack, then ultimately it can be traced, it can be protected, and obviously you're protecting the interests of not only your own business, but you're protecting your customers as well. So I think there's some value to be added to your businesses as well in those regards. And let's just move on. So yeah, in conclusion, as you're all aware, security is important to all businesses. You're not only protecting your interests, but you're also protecting your customers' interests as well. I'm sure they'll all appreciate the levels and steps you're taking to protect their business, and we take our own steps in regards to ISO 27001 to make sure obviously our own handling of data is processed and categorized correctly, so that we don't leak things and we don't leave paper lying around with users' passwords and things on. So we have to do the same sort of things, but generally you don't spend hundreds of thousands of pounds protecting your business, but there are some various levels that you can obviously put in place to help the worst case scenario. Obviously email protection, generally if you've got some sort of online based email, there will be a level of email protection. It's not always the best. It may always be worth looking at a third party who specialises in email security to provide that extra layer. Gateway protection, so we've talked about unified threat management appliances such as Sonic Wall and the WatchGuards, that sort of thing. Endpoint secure protection as well, obviously antivirus, obviously for insider threats as well. There's lots of antivirus now that will provide both, not just a virus protection. Disaster recovery plan, making sure your backups function, make sure they're tested. And also just basic good IT, Windows updates. It's an important step that we probably all hate to have to do, is sit there, let it update, restart it. It's another 30 minutes before you get onto your machine. But it's something that, again, it's always being exploited. Next window, the next update coming out, hackers see what actually the exploit was. They try and take advantage of it for people who haven't updated yet, and they then get into that system. And ultimately, obviously, time is money. For the time that your employees aren't doing anything, down to an IT system that's not functioning correctly. Obviously, it could mean loss of business, loss of earnings. That's that same old story, unfortunately. But I think obviously it's always best endeavours. There's no protection out there that is 99.9% going to stop everything. There is nothing out there that's going to aim and stop absolutely everything, because it's changing all the time. The other thing actually I've not mentioned on there is training as well. So there are a few email providers out there who can provide training in regards to phishing, and how that will work is they will send an email. So obviously it's arranged first, obviously, but obviously don't tell your employees. But they'll send an email to everybody within the business. Obviously we'll populate that. They'll all have their individual link, and then the users who do click on the phishing email and click into the link will then get a brief pop-up to say, well, you've almost gotcha. But to sort of teach them that ultimately, these sort of emails do come through all the time, and obviously then will flag to the managing director and executives that actually these 5 people who clicked on the link actually do need an element of training involved to help again protect your business. It happens so easily. I'm trying to think what else we've sort of got. I think that's pretty much it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Let's see if you've got some questions. Yeah, your first question is from Stuart, and he asks, will I need to invest substantial sums of money to protect my business?
No, I think if you're a small business, generally good antivirus generally probably ticks the majority of boxes. If I was brutally honest, I always believe in belt and braces. So if budgets can stretch to getting yourself a sonic wall of some distinction. They're not that expensive. They're probably between £600 to £1,000 for a good unified threat management appliance, which will provide that layer of protection. There will be ongoing subscription with that, but at least then you'd have antivirus and gateway protection as well. It also provides intrusion protection and prevention as well. So that's the route I would probably go down if budget allowed it. But that's obviously down to your own decisions, really.
Okay, thank you. A question from Zoe. Please could you provide some suggestions for creating long, unique passwords?
Okay, so there's a couple of routes you could go down. Ultimately, I was told that anything above 14 characters with uppercase, lowercase, and some special characters generally provide some good security. However, there are some products out there. There's a product out there called 1Password, for example, which will help store passwords. I suppose there is a danger to storing passwords because you've got to have a password to open a product to get a whole load of other passwords. But then you can have them more complicated. So you can have a unique generator, which will create a password that's 12 characters long with all sorts of random characters, no phrases, random up and down characters, but at least then you'll have a different password per service that you have, but you've then got a secure program to have it locked into. That ideally might be the best way forward in regards to those sort of passwords. But again, stay away from phrases as well. We've had people before where they have password as their password with a capital P @ symbol SSW0RD. Very common. You wouldn't think it, but it's very common. Purely because they can't remember what their password is. We've had it before when in a school actually where all the pupils' passwords were cat. Now all the pupils have email accounts because they're being taught now it's primary school that need to use emails and how to use it and what to be aware of. Now that's not the best password to have because again it could allow someone in to start emailing pupils at schools ultimately. So again, I think there's a need for complex passwords. Ultimately, something you're going to remember in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Philip. How secure are my Gmail emails? Do I need to back them up?
Okay, so any sort of cloud email, generally, for example, I'm not so familiar with Gmail, but I know with Office 365, for example, they do have a layer of which way you can restore your emails back, and I would presume that Gmail is going to be very similar. What they actually have is that you can actually put them on an in-place hold. So if you know you're going to be getting rid of a member of staff, for example, you can actually freeze their account so they can't delete anything. And if they do, for them it looks like it's disappeared. But from the technical perspective, we can actually get them back. I would definitely recommend backing up cloud-based emails, whether or not you do that manually by obviously exporting them from within Outlook, or you can pay for third parties to be able to back that up on a regular basis. There's no harm in doing so. Again, our backups will only go about 30 days in regards to sort of emails, unless the client deems it necessary otherwise. But 9 times out of 10 we sort of export them when a client leaves or when they know they're going to get rid of them. It depends again on budget. Again, because you'll pay per size of mailbox generally, and you'll pay for that ongoing subscription to back your email. So I'd certainly recommend backing them up one way, shape or form.
Next question, GDPR. Simon asks, will this affect charities as well as businesses?
Yes, it will. So I suppose it's any organisation that effectively has any kind of data, and I suppose the ones that do come to mind are charities. The other side, obviously, is with regards to GDPR and the data side of it is actually stating to those people how you're going to be using that data. So if you do collect data, and obviously you're using it to send emails to clients in regards to newsletters, or obviously offers that you've got on, is actually specifying to them actually how you're going to be utilising that data. I know that's going to be a big thing coming out for next year as part of GDPR, is actually how you're utilising people's private data. So you'll see an awful lot of spam, so you probably diminish from next year in regards to marketing and misuse of that email. So yes, it will affect you. You will have to put processes in place. You will have to advise your end users and obviously who that data refers to, actually how that data is going to be used, and obviously if they're still happy for it to be used in that manner.
Okay, so, thank you. Another question from Claire: is there a system that does it all from a protection point of view?
No, it's the best of. It's the best of all, isn't it, really? I suppose you've got providers out there who are the best in their field in regards to email security. You've got providers out there who are the best in the AV arena. You've got others who are out there in regards to the best unified threat management appliance. They're all much of a muchness. There's not one that does all, unfortunately. They all have their specialist areas. And for example, we use a mixture of ESET in regards to our security. They have great endpoint security in regards to the insider threat management side of it. We can get logs out of it. We can centrally manage users. We can put policies across them all. We do the same with our gateway appliances, so we can monitor them. We get logs regularly, so we can check what intrusions are trying to get in. But again, they're all different providers, providing various different, their specialist expertise in that particular area.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Got lots of questions there. If you do have any further questions, then I'll be sending out Matthew's contact details out to you all shortly, so please do email him direct. Before we close, this is just a quick reminder that this webinar is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. That's the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Matthew, for joining me, and we hope you can join us again very soon.